Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to another video. And today is a very special video because it's my very first monitor review of an Agon. And this is AOC's new range of premium monitors that are basically set to rival those from ROG, Acer Predator, and anyone that's making really high fidelity monitors for gamers. And they're not necessarily the cheapest things out there, but they can provide some of the best experiences. And this one, on paper, should be just one of those things, as it has a 144Hz refresh rate, Freesync technology, 1440p resolution, and then it has a TN panel. So I think that's all the key specs. Let's get into whether this thing is actually any good. And it all starts with the design of the monitor, which, like it should do as a more expensive monitor, it actually does look really nice. It has a solid metal frame on the base, and the stand, I have to say, does look really nice. Now immediately you're thinking, well, this looks good, but it doesn't look like it has many adjustments, but you would be wrong. This monitor has all the adjustments. It's got a clever sort of swivel in the stand itself, but otherwise we've got swivel, we've got tilt, and we've got height adjust as well. And if you want to put this 90 degrees, you can pivot it all the way to 90 degrees as well. Now there is one big problem with this stand, and it's one of the things I really dislike the most about this monitor, and I have a feeling it's going to affect the entire Agon range. And that's just the fact that the cable management is pretty much non-existent on these monitors, and I have no idea how this happened really. You've got a cable management hole at the bottom of the monitor, but this is basically just a hole. It doesn't actually do anything to hide your cables, and you're almost better off not using this and sort of wrapping it around something, because it just doesn't look very tidy, does it? Having two cables going down the bottom of the monitor and then going up to the ports. And I know my cable management with the mouse and keyboard isn't brilliant, but if you really did want to create a really nice clean setup with wireless peripherals, the monitor probably would ruin it for you. But otherwise, I have to say I do like the design. The bezels, they're definitely not the slimmest, but they're pretty slim. No one's really going to have too much of a problem here. And the actual bezel itself, it doesn't necessarily look as premium as those on monitors from LG and part of the Asus ROG lineup. Overall, it does look very good. It looks more expensive than AOC's other monitors, but I'm not entirely sure it's right up there with the best of the likes of the ROG line. As we move around to the back of the monitor, the design theme continues. And I think looking at the back and the front and the overall design language of the monitor, I have to say it's probably what a lot of people really have been asking for, because it is a nice premium looking monitor that has a slight gamer-esque edge to it, but not in any way like the ROG lineup and the Acer Predator lineup does, and it strikes a really nice balance between something that looks great and then something that looks almost gamer-esque. Personally, I really do like the balance. Ports-wise though, underneath the monitor you will find we have a headphone and microphone jack, or at least the jack inputs. We have a USB hub on the right hand side with those headphone and microphone jacks again on the side, and you also have a headphone stand as well, a little thing that pops around and you can pop a pair of headphones, but personally I think it does look a little bit ridiculous, but that's entirely up to you. On the underside of the monitor, in terms of the actual ports to hook this up to your PC or your device, you have two HDMI sockets. I think one of them is 2.0 and one of them is 1.4, but it was quite difficult to test, as plugging this directly into an Xbox One S, both the HDMI ports, even though it was set to 2.0, would not allow any 4K signal at all, and I was sort of hoping we could almost down-res a 4K signal from the Xbox One S into this monitor. Sadly, that's not the case. It's stuck to 1080p, but if you do want to hook this up to a PC with HDMI 2.0, then you're going to be able to drive this at its full resolution. At least in theory, this wasn't something I was able to test. We've also got a DisplayPort though, which is what most people are going to use. And then you've got a legacy VGA connection as well, but not really sure why anyone would be using that in this day and age. In terms of the buttons and the overall control mechanism of the on-screen menus, you'll find we have buttons along the bottom of the monitor. And these are physical buttons, but they're very shallow, and you can't really see what you're doing. And I have to say, the menu system on this thing, it's very, very disappointing, because AOC, the menu just isn't brilliant. It's not very easy to use. It's usable, let's make that clear. Most people, they won't have a problem. They're just set it up the way they want to and never use it ever again. But literally LG, Asus, Acer, even Philips, which are sort of half related to AOC in some ways, they've all got better menus. So I've no idea why AOC have stuck with the same menu system here, as while it's certainly responsive, it's just not really well laid out and doesn't scream premium like the rest of the monitor. So AOC, if you're listening, please develop a new menu system that's a lot clearer and a lot easier to use, because all your rivals are doing just that, and it really would make your monitor a lot more user-friendly to those that want to tinker about in the settings. And so then, that's pretty much everything you need to know about the design of this monitor, but what about its performance? Well, the good news is that its performance is actually very, very good for a TN panel. It's one of the best TN monitors I've used so far, and it definitely does have a few problems associated with TN monitors. Viewing angles are definitely a lot worse than what I'm used to from IPS monitors, and even for a TN panel it's good, but I think I have seen better. If you're looking at this particularly from a lower or higher viewing angle, then the colour, it just shifts terribly and it's really not very good at all. But if you're using this as a one-man band, you've got a very large circle that you can be in without having too much of an effect on the image, but it is off-putting if you are quickly reaching for something on a shelf, let's say. You can quite easily see that the colour is shifting, but for most people it's not going to be an issue at all. Colours-wise, the colours don't pop, but I wouldn't say it looks flat. A lot of TN monitors and a lot of TN gaming monitors, they really don't look as good as IPS panels, and there's a big difference. There's definitely a difference, but it's not quite as big as if this was a lower grade TN panel. TN panels have come a long way, and this is definitely one of the best I've used. But I think the biggest problem with this monitor that I've come across in terms of performance is just simply there is some smearing on the screen. Even on the overdrive at its lowest setting, moving Windows Explorer windows on the desktop, you can see that there is some horrible green smearing going on, even if you're not doing it that quickly. And even moving the mouse, you can see that there is some smearing happening. And it's a shame that this can't be eliminated with any of the settings on the on-screen menu, or at least in any of the settings that I could find to change anything in terms of responsiveness. But fortunately this didn't affect my general use. It was only really in extreme applications, but it's definitely something to note, as this definitely is an issue. Moving on to games though, I have to say that this is one of the best gaming monitors I've used so far. It's a FreeSync monitor, and I did most of my gaming testing with an AMD R9 Fury, and that's pretty much like a perfect partner really for this monitor, as it can drive the monitor at about, depending on the game, around about 100 to 120 frames a second, again depending on the game. And the FreeSync is between 30 and 144 Hz on this monitor, which is one of the widest ranges I've seen on a monitor like this so far. And it means you're going to get less stutter and less tearing in your games, but even if you have an Nvidia card, it's still worth checking this one out, as there's no FreeSync tax like you would have with a G-Sync monitor that costs about £100–120 more, at least at the time of filming, than a FreeSync counterpart. But in terms of the actual gaming performance, Gears of War 4 looked very good and it felt even better. I definitely had the confidence that I needed from the fluidity. Simply moving around and moving the mouse around, it made aiming that little bit easier. And yes, you're going to need a graphics card that can provide decent horsepower, but everything felt smooth, responsive, and it didn't suck like it does with a lot of TN panels, in the sense that the colours, they looked perfectly fine. There was enough contrast here, and while it's not the best looking image I've seen, it strikes a very nice balance between the way it looks and the way it plays. And I know, while I'm a big die-hard fan of ultra-wide 100Hz AHVA IPS panels, there are plenty of people out there that prefer something that is the absolute most responsive, fastest monitor out there, and this definitely ticks those boxes. This carried across to Counter-Strike Go. I did run into some FreeSync issues, but restarting the PC fixed this, where I was having some flicker, but I did manage to fix that by restarting the PC. And again, feels really good, and if you're a serious Counter-Strike Go player, this monitor should tick all the right boxes. Civilization 6 as well, I did some limited testing. I mean, it looks good. I mean, it's not the most responsive game, or at least it's not the game that relies on the most responsive monitor, but this still was a solid shout. And for gaming, I have to say it was actually a very impressive bit of kit. But on balance, it's not something I personally would buy. I am a content creator. I rely on having a monitor that accurately reflects the colours of my work, and this doesn't just do that. Well, I say doesn't just do that, it doesn't quite do that, but it does come very close. But this is a gaming monitor for gamers, and on balance, I think a lot of people would be very happy with this monitor. As for gaming performance, it's brilliant, and in general use, it's more than adequate. It's not a terrible TN panel like I'm used to. And of course, it's cheaper than some of its rivals that use IPS panels, and it's cheaper than the Agon monitors that use IPS panels. So in that respect, it's very, very good. And in terms of the award, I'm not entirely sure between a recommended and a top performer award, because it is a top performer, but I think the fact that it has some serious smearing issues, or at least some issues in the desktop, and the fact that there is no cable management at all, leans me more towards the recommended award. But let me make something very clear. The reason I don't give out scores on this channel is because I don't think a monitor can be classified as an 8 and then another monitor as a 7. It's going to depend entirely on your use. And I would highly recommend, if you're someone that does a lot of stuff other than gaming, you check out maybe something like the AOC AGON from Asus, which is a similar price and it uses an IPS panel, but it has a smaller FreeSync range. And if you're all about the gaming, then this monitor should definitely be considered, but it is a recommended award overall. I hope that makes sense, and I hope this video has been useful for you. If it has, hit the like button, and if it hasn't, hit the dislike button. Subscribe for more videos just like this, and if you want to see the Amazon link, I'll leave this down in the description below so you can learn more and see the current price of this monitor. Any questions, leave them down below at PC Centric on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all those good places. A massive thank you to Corsair for sponsoring the channel as always, and I'll see you in the next video. AHVA panel with 165Hz refresh rate, because I've got a cat in here. What are you doing? What are you doing? Yes, I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but we've got to go. We're filming a review, look, and we don't want to disturb the people. I need to get this filmed. Sorry.